Hi, I want to welcome everyone for coming to today's webinar. Today we'll be exploring women's wear trends for spring-summer 2021 in Asia. So we'll be diving into Shanghai and Tokyo fashion weeks for more data-driven trends, and then we'll also be taking a look at Seoul Fashion Week for overarching themes from the collections. So my name is Melanie. I'm Erytech's fashion editor and PR officer, and I'll be presenting today with my colleague Jenna, who will present herself.
Yes, so I'm Jenna. I'm the fashion curator and trend analyst at Erytech.
So first, to explain a little bit, for those of you who might not know, what is data-driven forecasting? So data-driven forecasting is essentially predictive analytics on market trends with details including consumer segmentation, geography, trend visibility, and more. But how does it work? So our methodology at Erytech, it's based in artificial intelligence. We use a proprietary image recognition technology to scan millions of images from social media to pick up on thousands of different attributes, including color, pattern, texture, silhouette, and more. So for today's presentation, we selected images from Shanghai and Tokyo fashion weeks on Instagram, from the catwalks, and from street style. So we'll be forecasting these trends for summer 2021 and comparing them with last summer, 2020, to get an accurate reading of their behavior. And before we get into it, I'm just going to quickly explain our metrics a little bit because these are words we're going to be using throughout the presentation. So first, to build a trend diagnosis, what do? We monitor the trend's visibility. So in other words, we monitor the volume of posts on which our technology detected the trend. So our first metric is called the growth rate. And this compares the evolution of the visibility of the trend between the same seasons over 2 different years. So in this case, it's going to be between summer 21 and summer 20. And then we have the magnitude, and this evaluates the forecasted visibility of the trend on social images on the season of interest. So in other words, magnitude is basically the level of potential market demand for a trend. And we divide this into 5 levels, starting from micro all the way up to massive. And together, the magnitude and the growth rate determine a trend's cluster. So a cluster is basically the status of a trend for a given season. And we divide this metric into 6 levels, starting from markdown, which is a no-go for your collections, all the way up to fashion bet, which is a definite green light for your collections. And then we have the consumer segmentation, and this means to which audience the trend will most appeal. So we separate this into 3 categories. We have edgy, trendy, and mainstream consumers. And then finally, our last metric is the category breakdown. This is the clothing category on which the trend stands out. So it could be tops, dresses, and so on. And when we refer to points during this metric, which we'll do throughout the presentation, this means that the share of posts featuring this trend on the specific category is higher by X points than the average of this category on the whole Instagram feed. So I know that's a lot of explanation, and if you have any questions at the end of the presentation, we'll be glad to answer those. So now I'm just going to let Jenna start off with color trends from Shanghai and Tokyo.
Cool, thank you, Melanie. So I'm going to start by introducing to you 4 of the biggest color trends we spotted, and then Melanie will take over and tell you about the fabric and print trends from China and Japan fashion weeks. So the first major color trend is this medium blue color. It's a really versatile color that was super present in both Tokyo and Shanghai. And as you can see from these images, it can be worn monochromatically or super easily with other colors. It can really work in any type of textile for formal attire or casual wear. So it's super versatile, and so it makes sense why we saw so much of it in both China and Japan. And one more thing about this medium blue is we saw a lot of it both on the runways and in street style. So it clearly has a pretty universal appeal. And to compare the metrics between the 2 markets, in China, there's a predicted increase in visibility of 13% by summer 21 compared to 2020, which we call a moderate increase. And then in combination with a big magnitude, medium blue is a fashion bet in China. For the segmentation, mainstream and edgy people wear this color the most. And when the consumer segmentation is divided like this, it often means that this is a trend that's already well established in the market. There's a really high level of visibility. It's very mainstream and widely adopted. However, more niche, maybe emerging designers are kind of reimagining this trend in a new way and recontextualizing it to be more edgy in a way. And then for the category breakdown, pants followed by outerwear and shorts are the most represented category. In Japan, medium blue is also increasing by a bit less than China by 8% by summer 21 compared to 2020, which is a slight increase in combination with a big magnitude as well, makes it a safe bet in Japan. For the segmentation, all three consumer segments wear this color equally in Japan, which is another little difference between the Japanese and Chinese market. In Japan, medium blue clearly appeals to all different types of consumers, whereas in China, it's the mainstream and edgy consumers. And then for the category breakdown in Japan, pants are by far the most represented category, followed by shorts and skirts. So the next color we have that was super present in both Shanghai and Tokyo Fashion Week is white. And this kind of mirrors what we saw during the European Fashion Weeks for SS21. White has really been the go-to neutral color, and we see it worn monochromatically as well as with other colors, as you can see with this bright orange look, and you can really pair it with any color. Obviously, it's very versatile. We saw it in street style as well as the runways. So yes, this is really the go-to neutral color for spring summer 21 in both Europe and Asia. So to compare the behavior of this trend in China versus Japan. So in China, the behavior is quite flat. There's a slight 1% increase by summer 21 compared to 2020 in combination with a massive magnitude. White is a safe bet. For the consumer segmentation, trendy and edgy people wear white the most, which is super interesting to me that it doesn't really have a mainstream appeal in China. It's more people who are somewhat aware of fashion or follow trends who wear white the most. And then the most represented category is tops. In Japan, the white trend is increasing by a bit more than China by 7% by summer 21 compared to 2020, which is a slight increase in combination with a massive magnitude. It's also a safe bet in Japan. For the consumer segmentation, white appeals to all three of our consumer segments in Japan. So kind of similar to what we saw with medium blue, white has a more universal appeal in Japan. All three consumer segments wear this color. And then just like China, the most represented category is tops. The next colors we have is cool tones. So this has really been like the dominant color palette for SS21, both in China, Japan, and during the European Fashion Week. So purple, blue, green colors. To me, it creates this like kind of atmospheric, fresh effect. And we often see these colors being used on really like light and airy fabrics, which to me matches the energy of these colors. They're light and fresh. And we also often see cool tones being used in these sort of tie-dye atmospheric prints, as you can see from Angel Chen and Susan Fang. And one more thing to know about cool tones is that they seem to be more popular amongst the more niche emerging designers compared to the super mainstream brands. And to compare the behaviors, so in China, cool tones will slightly increase by summer 21 by 2%, which is a flat growth rate. In combination with a big magnitude, cool tones are a safe bet in China. The segmentation is edgy people in China, and then the most represented categories are pants, followed by outerwear and skirts. In Japan, cool tones are increasing by a little bit more than China by summer 21. There's a 6% predicted increase, which we call slightly increasing. And then when you pair this with a big magnitude, it is also a safe bet. So safe bet in both markets. However, Similar to the other colors we saw, cool tones have a much wider appeal, it seems, in China because all three of our consumer segments wear cool tones. Yeah, they just have a more general appeal. And for the category breakdown, we have pants followed by outerwear and skirts. So it's basically the same in China and Japan. The last color I'm going to tell you about is pastel purple. So this is another color in the cool tones family. Clearly, this is a trend, a big color trend amongst designers. This is a really, I don't know, calming tone. However, one thing that's specific about the pastel purple is that we mostly saw it on the runways, not so much in street style, in contrast to the other color trends. And additionally, we mostly saw it amongst Chinese designers rather than Japanese. And you'll see when I compare the markets, this kind of is opposite to what our data indicates, although the behavior is quite similar in both markets. Our data shows that in Japan, there's a little bit more of an increase in visibility of pastel purple compared to China, although it was more present amongst Chinese designers. So in China, there's a tiny predicted increase by 1%, 0.1% by summer 21 compared to 2020, which is flat. In combination with a medium magnitude, pastel purple is a safe bet. For the segmentation, pastel purple is most commonly worn by mainstream consumers, and the most represented category is tops. In Japan, there's a 4% forecasted increase by summer 21 compared to 2020. We also consider this flat, and in combination with a medium magnitude as well, it's a safe bet in both markets. The segmentation is the opposite in Japan as it is in China. It's the edgy and trendy people who wear this color the most. It's super interesting how in both markets, the consumer segmentation seems to be the biggest point of difference. And then for the category breakdown in Japan, we have tops followed by a little bit extra on skirts. So now I'm going to leave it to Melanie to tell you about the print and fabric trends.
So our first fabric trend from Shanghai and Tokyo is taffeta. And taffeta was definitely one of the breakout trends of the season. We saw it take off in Europe for SS21, and we're seeing a similar effect in Asia for next season. So it's surprising given that taffeta is quite a formal fabric, which helps to explain its iteration in dresses and in skirts for the most part. But in Asia, we are seeing designers play around with a little bit more. A-line dresses, for instance, were one of the most popular silhouettes for this fabric, because its sort of stiff shape lends itself really well to big silhouettes. So taffeta is going to take off in China by 23%, which makes it a bold bet. And even though it does have a small magnitude, this can be explained by its more niche appeal because its consumer segmentation is uniquely edgy consumers. As I just said, taffeta is going to be most present on skirts and on dresses. With that said, the way it's going to be reinterpreted in China is going to be a little bit different to the traditional sort of ball gown feel that we usually see, like from this Nova image that we see on the left. In Japan, taffeta is equally going to be popular, albeit a bit less. It's going to rise by 13% for summer 2021. And it does have a small magnitude like in China. With that said, it will appeal to a larger consumer segment than in China. It will appeal to both edgy and trendy consumers, which is probably why we saw it on street style in Tokyo much more than we did in Shanghai. It's going to be most popular, once again, on dresses and on skirts. But like I said, designers are getting a little bit more creative with it this season. And then we have linen, which is another breakout trend that we noticed for SS21 in Europe, just like in Asia. So it's a lightweight, breathable, sort of summery fabric. And it definitely has ties with the sustainability movement that we've been seeing growing throughout this year. And during both Shanghai and Tokyo fashion weeks, we saw linen used in sort of traditional tailored garments like suits and blazers, but with a more relaxed work from home kind of twist. In China, linen is going to behave quite differently from in Japan. So in China, it's going to rise by 14% next summer. And the fabric will be a bold bet. It does have a small magnitude though, which can be explained by its trendy and edgy appeal among consumers. We're going to see linen, interestingly, on dresses more than anything else, which is not usually where we see it. Linen is quite popular on tops and pants, which we will see in China, but it'll be interesting to see how designers come out with linen dresses for next summer. In Japan, on the other hand, linen is going to actually decline by 4%, but we do consider this a flat growth rate. And coupled with its big magnitude, which is the inverse of China, linen is going to be a safe bet in Japan. So designers can be sure to sell this pretty well next summer in Tokyo and around. And it's going to be most popular on tops, unlike in China, but also in dresses. And then we have muslin, and this is a fabric that I find a little bit similar to taffeta, not necessarily in its composition, but in its versatility. It can veer on the delicate and the sheer, but also on the coarse and sort of noisy fabric. We saw it crop up quite a bit in Shanghai and Tokyo in both casual and formal attire. So designers really took it in two different directions. So in China, muslin is not going to move. It has a perfect flat growth rate of 0%, but because it does have a medium magnitude, muslin's going to be a safe bet for summer 2021. The good thing is for designers is that it's going to have a universal appeal. The fabric's going to appeal to all consumer segments, and most notably on dresses in China. In Japan, on the other hand, muslin is really going to boom. So it's going to rise by 36%, which we do consider strongly increasing. And just like in China, it has a medium potential market demand. So muslin is going to be a fashion bet. So Japanese designers can definitely include this in their collections and play around with it a bit because it appeals to mainstream consumers. And it's going to be most popular on dresses and on skirts. And then for pinstripes, now we're moving on to prints. So this is a print definitely associated with business wear. We can just see it on this image from Hike on the far left. We see it usually on suits and blazers and things like that. But during Tokyo and Shanghai, designers reinterpreted it on more relaxed silhouettes. So I said that Hike was more of a suit blazer kind of look, but it is a more relaxed silhouette with a tunic top sort of feel to it. And we can even see Mikio Sakabe, who made a flowing hooded dress in the top right of the pattern, which isn't something we usually see with pinstripes. In China, pinstripes are going to rise by 16%. And paired with their small magnitude, we consider pinstripes to be a bold bet for Chinese collections for summer 2021. It's going to appeal to all consumer segments, which explains itself because it is quite a wardrobe staple pattern. And we're going to see it most on outerwear, but also on pants, which tend to go together because, like I said, pinstripes are most seen on blazers and trousers and sort of suit get-ups and things like that. And then in Japan, pinstripes are also going to rise by a little bit less though, by 2% only, which is quite a flat growth rate. And it does have a small magnitude. And so we consider this to be a steady status for next summer. The trend, interestingly though, is only going to appeal to edgy consumers in Japan next summer. And that could be explained by the way that Japanese designers are using pinstripes in their looks. Like we could see on this image for Japan, it's sort of a long flowing tunic kind of cardigan feel. Which goes with the outerwear category, which is going to be the most present for the trend. And then we have gingham, which is a very classic vernal print. It's feminine. We see it most often on dresses and skirts. But the Chinese brand Shushu Tong, for example, retook the print to make sort of a modern artistic version. And this is the kind of creativity that we saw a lot during SS21 in Asia. In China, gingham is actually going to decline by 8%. But because it has a medium magnitude, gingham is going to be a safe bet in China for next summer. It's going to appeal to both mainstream and trendy audiences, which generally means that it's a pattern that's already been adopted by the mass market, but that maybe emerging or a little bit more niche designers are retaking the print and doing something different with it this season. We're going to see it most often on dresses and on skirts, as we usually do with the pattern. In Japan, though, gingham's actually going to rise by quite a bit. It's going to rise by 11%. And with a medium magnitude, gingham is going to be a fashion bet in the country next summer. It's going to appeal uniquely to edgy consumers, which could be explained by the way that Japanese designers are reinterpreting it. Like in this image from Base Mark, we see gingham on sort of a tank top tunic kind of feel, which isn't usually the way that we see gingham. With that said, though, the pattern will be most present on dresses and on skirts, but also on tops, which is something a bit new for the pattern. And then the last print that we have is tie-dye. And this is a print that we've seen all over for the whole season, for the whole year, I want to say, in Europe and in the US. And it's going to have a similar behavior in Asia. So this print was explored by both Chinese and Japanese designers, and we saw them create almost a psychedelic sort of vibe with it. In China, tie-dye is going to rise by 5%, but coupled with its small magnitude, perhaps because it's a trend, it's a print that's been done a lot of times this year. So maybe for SS21, this could explain the flat growth rate. And we consider this to be a steady status for the trend next summer in China. With that said, the consumer appeal is going to be quite mainstream. We're going to see it most often on tops, also on dresses. So we might see it on t-shirts, on sweatshirts, and things like that. In Japan, on the other hand, tie-dye is going to rise by quite a bit more than in China. It's going to rise by 27%. And with its medium magnitude, we consider this to be a fashion bet for summer 2021. Designers are going to be able to be a bit more loose with the way that they interpret this pattern because it's going to appeal to both mainstream and trendy consumers. And we'll see it most often on tops in Japan for next summer as well.
Oh, thank you, Melanie. Now I'm gonna talk you through some of the biggest qualitative trends that we noticed during Seoul Fashion Week in South Korea. So the first trend we have is a color trend. It's this pastel green color. And this is another color that fits in the cool tones that we were talking about earlier. It has a really calming Zen energy to it to me. And we most often saw light pastel green being used with really light and airy fabrics, which again, to me, matches the energy of the color. It's very light and calming. And we also mostly saw this color being used by the more emerging young designers in Seoul. And also light green was most commonly either worn monochromatically or with other kind of neutral, calm colors, except for the bleached denim jacket you can see as well. So yes, pastel green was really one of the biggest color trends that we spotted during Seoul Fashion Week. The next trend is a detail trend. It's one of my favorites. It's the cargo pocket. And obviously it's a really practical design element to add to a garment. And we also saw designers adding cargo pockets to garments where you wouldn't normally expect it. So with Big Park, for example, we have this classic tailored blazer with these big cargo pockets. And to me, it creates kind of an interesting contrast between something that's really traditional and then adding this utilitarian detail to it. However, we also saw cargo pockets on garments where you would normally expect to see it. So The Antidote has these big parachute jogger pants with cargo pockets, which is kind of a more traditional way that you would be used to seeing this detail. Next, we have this dress over pants silhouette, which is a big trend that we also noticed during the European Fashion Weeks. This one is super interesting to me because you don't really see the average person wearing this very often, but it was really in so many different designers' collections. So time will tell if people actually adopt this look. And it really recalls to me the style of the late 90s, early 2000s when people would pair like cropped leggings with a mini skirt. But for 2021, we're seeing this kind of reimagined with loose trousers and loose, long, flowing dresses compared to the skinny leggings look that was popular in the early 2000s. So yes, time will tell if consumers actually adopt this silhouette trend as we move into the new year. Next, we have metallic textiles. This is another trend that kind of mirrors what we saw during the European fashion weeks. A lot of kind of young emerging designers specifically incorporated metallic textiles into their collections for SS21. And we mostly see metallic either in silver or in cool colors, as you can see with this all green look. And we're also seeing designers use metallic fabrics on all different types of silhouettes. So this head to toe green or on pants, a mini skirt. So really used on any garment. And obviously it's a more bold trend because it's really attention grabbing, kind of spacey and futuristic. So it makes sense why the more niche, edgy designers seem to be bigger fans of this textile. And then the last qualitative insight we want to share with you is this half and half design. This is super interesting to me because this specific iteration of patchwork was really, really common in Seoul, and I've never really seen it that much anywhere else. This is probably related to sustainability because a common way of reworking old garments or using dead stock fabric is using patchwork. And it also creates an interesting contrast between the two different colors or patterns. And yeah, we really saw a lot of this. I would be super curious to know what designers are inspired by or what references they're using, because again, it's a super specific trend to Seoul. And mostly we saw for tops and dresses. So that concludes our qualitative insights from Seoul. I'm just gonna go over some key takeaways to summarize everything that we just talked about. So first of all, taffeta is a bold bet in both China and Japan, making it a trend to keep a close eye on as we approach summer 21. And we're sure to see this all over Asia, as it was a really breakout trend in both countries. Next, pinstripes, linen, and medium blue are trends that are all slated to take off more in China compared to Japan by summer 21. A third point, muslin, gingham, and tie-dye are all considered fashion bets in Japan, while in China, they're either safe bets or steady. So the behavior of these trends are a lot more exciting in Japan, and they are predicted to be bigger trends by summer 21. Next, pastel, purple, cool tones, and white were all seen in street style as well as the runways, and they are going to be safe bets in both markets. And lastly, during Seoul Fashion Week, metallic fabrics and styling a dress over pants are two really big trends that we also saw during European Fashion Weeks, which indicates that these trends will kind of take off across both continents as we enter the new year.